Asbury Church. We are here with Nathan, who's our worship pastor. He joined us in August. Is that correct? August. So hasn't been here too long. So Nathan, why don't you just give us a little bit of background on you, on how you came to be a worship pastor and kind of where your love of music began?
Okay. So I started playing piano when I was real young. I mean, I don't even remember how old I was, like 4 or 5 or something. So that's how I first got into music, learned to read music and stuff like that. But my brother gave me the first Weezer CD. He was really into
Weezer,
rock and 90s music.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so he was playing this in the house all the time, and I could hear it from his bedroom, and I thought it was like the greatest sound I'd ever heard. So I started to really want to play guitar and write songs, and I didn't learn to play until 7th grade. Then I got into guitar, then I quit piano, and then later, I think I was 13 or 14, my church's band lost their bass player because he graduated from college and moved away.
Yep.
So I had a chance to step in on bass, and that was like my first experience with the worship band. Over time, they figured out I could sing, and then they moved me over to guitar, and I started singing some. And that's just kind of how I got into leading worship at church.
How has the music aspect of your walk, how does music feed into your spiritual life?
It's interesting to me because at first I had a hard time really getting into worship music because I was so guitar driven, and there were only like a few songs that really stretched things as a musician. And I was kind of thinking like, well, we're making music for the creator of the universe. Shouldn't it be like the most awesome thing ever? But over time, I started to figure out, because I couldn't gravitate towards the guitar playing, like in terms of technicality and stuff, I started focusing more on the words. And I can't say my S's right now because of my brace and stuff.
It's okay.
But
we'll forgive you.
I did start to focus more on the words, and that helped me start to connect with God more during the worship songs, and having to lead people and teach a team how to connect with the songs. I kind of had to do the same thing, and we talk about, well, what in a song speaks to you about God and your relationship with Jesus, and that was kind of a good exercise for all of us.
From your perspective, has it changed the way you view worship? Has it evolved? The way you lead worship, has it evolved since you began to when it ended, or to where you are now? Not ended.
Yeah, I think.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. So the way I've approached leading worship is different probably now than when I started. I mean, I was younger, and
Sure.
You learn, and your own spiritual life grows and changes. So I think when I started, I just really wanted to pump people up for the service and like kind of bring them together. And we still want to do that to some extent.
Yeah.
But like my sole job is to get people to connect with Jesus. So I pretty much zone in on that, and I'm trying to bring energy, but I don't really want them to I don't want them to fully connect with me. I mean, you do, but you don't, because
Gotcha.
like we're all worshiping together, but you're trying to bring focus to Jesus. Now that's much different than, I grew up playing in rock bands. That's much different than what you would do there, where your job is to entertain. In leading worship, it's more about, hey, we're a big group, we're worshiping one God, and let's do this together.
Yeah.
I almost want to minimize myself, so for a while I was hesitant to like move around much or like get into the music much, but then I kind of cut myself some slack lately. Like, it's okay. Like,
We like that too.
We're not trying to draw attention to ourselves, but I mean, shouldn't worshiping God be like fun and energizing? So it's kind of a different approach.
Well, and I think as the congregation, as they see you engaged in the music and so involved in what's happening in the music front, I think that helps us get involved also, which I think is part of the point.
Yeah, I mean, if I just stood up there, like, it'd be hard to get into it. I mean,
Yeah.
Headbanging is part of me. I have to do it. It's headbang for the Lord.
Headbang for the Lord. I love it. Give me your next song. How do you, well, let me think how to say this. When you're part of the pastoral staff sitting down to plan worship, how do you feel like the music? What role does the music play in the planning process for a worship service?
So the planning process, picking songs, partly what we're trying to do is bring people together. Partly what I'm trying to do is prepare people for the sermon. So I'm kind of trying to introduce the theme, maybe, of what he's going to talk about. Not every song, but put a song or two in there that's going to kind of shed some light on what we're about to talk about. Because the more that we can do that, the more the whole service focuses on that one point, the more people will take that home and really be able to embrace it.
Gotcha. Has there been a funny that as you've been worshiping, that you've looked at and you've seen, maybe not at Asbury, because you've been at some other places, but has there been anything that you're just like, oh my goodness, did you just see what just happened? Has there been anything like that? I always think I'm always like, when we're singing along and I screw up on a word, I'm always like, oh my goodness, and I'm not even up there. So,
man. Yes. So I don't like to look at my music that much. I do when I have to, but I'll frequently try to memorize a couple lines and look out there. Sometimes I make mistakes. I don't know why. At my home church, when I was in my teens, probably the worst thing I said was, there was a line in Rock of Ages, there is no rock, there is no God like our God. And I'll switch words out of order sometimes. Gotcha. I said, there is no God. But then I said, like, there is no God like our God, try to fix it. I'm like, no.
You're like, wait, not what I mean. There is a God.
Yes. That was embarrassing. I think I've had some worse ones too that I'm just not going to tell you.
Okay, that's okay. We won't throw you under the bus. Are there specific worship songs that just hit you, that you sing them or you hear them and you're just right there, that it brings Jesus right into your presence?
Yeah.
Or vice versa?
One of the biggest ones for me, there's a song called Overcome. The Desperation Band version is the one that I really like, because it's talking about how Jesus helps us overcome our own struggles, and he's overcome, and we will overcome because of him. And that was a big deal to me when I first heard it, because I was having a rough time in life. And there's in the Desperation Band version, they have all these people speak about the issues that Jesus helped them overcome, and it really puts it in perspective. Like, they were struggling with anxiety or depression or things like that. So when I start to hear redemption stories, really get me. So when I start to hear things like that, it's like, oh,
you right there.
But it's powerful too. So that song speaks to me.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite one right now is "So Will I." It's that Hillsong song about creation, and it's not typical because it doesn't have that typical repeating chorus like a lot of songs have. But that's why I like it, because lyrically they speak about God in a different way that I haven't heard in a lot of worship songs.
Yeah.
They're just talking about creation, praises God, so will I. You have to look at it, but it just highlights like all these fine points of the creation story, and with a lot of detail, and that's what I like. It's very descriptive.
Well, I'll get those lists and we'll put those in the the content of the video, so that way people can go and listen to a couple of your favorites and kind of see what you're liking. Now, you play in a different band also, not in our worship band. I mean, you do play in our worship band, but you have another band too. So how do the two, do they fit together? Do they play off each other? Or is it just a completely different realm?
They kind of fit together, but they're much different. So if you see what I do in the church service, and then you go see my solo project, I'm not in a band right now, but I'm a solo artist.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry, I didn't mess you. I didn't mean to mess you.
Okay, someday I hope. But what I do in my solo project is quite a bit more rock and roll, I guess. I write songs, and I write like a journal. So a lot of the songs are older. I still write, but like between 18 and now, I've basically written songs like a journal through that whole time. So what I try to do with those songs is kind of show the larger story that I've been through, and part of that is my spiritual search. Part of that is struggles and all that.
Yeah.
So it's supposed to kind of show, I don't know, a journey, you know, and I'm hoping some of those songs will open the door for conversation. Like I've got several songs about like when I went through my spiritual journey and started investigating and asking questions and starting to I took like a detective approach to spirituality, trying to figure out what was true and what wasn't.
Okay.
So I put that into several songs.
Okay.
And then I'll go play those live at a bar or something to see if anyone bites
Catches it.
and wants to
Yeah.
talk about it. So
Finds the clue.
yeah.
That seems to be a thing with you of just you have a heart for those souls that are out there seeking, and I think that's a huge aspect of you with your brewery ministries. Where does that come from? What is that? Where did that start from, or is that just part of that journey that you were on?
Yeah, I don't totally know. I think it was just part of the journey. And when I was 18. I got my first gig in a bar, so I was a senior in high school.
Oh my goodness.
And at night I was playing in the bars, but they won't let you stay in there when you're not playing, when you're under 21. So I'd be sitting out in the car in the parking lot. And I'd go in and play and I'd leave. But, over time I figured out there's a lot of people in the bars that are actually talking about God and Jesus, and that was a little bit unexpected at first. But they're asking legitimate questions, and some of them are going through sincere transformation. And I thought, wow, I didn't necessarily expect to find that in this environment, but it was there. Yeah. And I remember at my last church, I just kind of had this revelation one day, because we were running a young adults group, and so every time a visitor came in the door, we didn't have a lot of young adults. So we try to meet them and introduce ourselves and say hi and try to start building a young adults group. Well, one thing I realized was every single person who came in the door, they were already a Christian. And that kind of bothered me, because I knew this other group existed who was searching and asking questions, but they weren't making it into the church for some reason. And so I started to wrestle with, why is that, and how can we change that? And at some point I realized they might not actually get to the church, so we might have to go to them. And I'm kind of comfortable in that environment after 20 years of playing in bars, so I thought, why not go there?
Awesome. Well, can I talk you into playing a few songs for us?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that.
So the first song I'm going to play is Reckless Love by Corey Asbury. Very appropriate last name, right?
Perfect.
A couple years ago, I subbed in as a drummer in a cover band, and they actually played this song at one of the breweries downtown. And I thought, wow, this song, Reckless Love, really speaks to maybe people who don't know God, about how much He loves them. And I found that to be a very powerful song to share with other people who maybe don't have a relationship with God yet. So this song's kind of stuck with me ever since then. Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You've been so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You've been so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, finds till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You've been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You've been so, so kind to me. Rolling overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Rolling overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Rolling overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
Woo! I feel like I need a cheer. That was great. Got one more for us?
This song's called Till I See You, and it's by Joel Houston. And it's something that really stuck with me because it gives us a lot of hope about the future. And so this song resonated with me. The greatest love that anyone could ever know, that overcame the cross and grave to find my soul. Until I see you face to face, and grace amazing takes me home. I trust in you. With all I am and live to see your kingdom come, and in my heart I pray you let your will be done. Until I see you face to face, and grace amazing takes me home. I trust in you. I know that overcame the cross and grave to find my soul. Until I see you face to face, and grace amazing takes me home. I'll trust in you.
Woo! Thank you, Pastor Nathan.